Hello, everybody. This is Arnold. This is episode number 2 of the Cherry Hill Seminary podcast. Cherry Hill Seminary serves pagan and nature-based communities by providing high-quality education, allowing students to succeed academically and lead spiritually. Our guest on the podcast today is Helena Domenic, MA and MFA. She is an artist, a pagan, and I think from there I will let her introduce herself. So, Helena, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you
Why
so
don't you
much.
tell the audience a little about, first, let's start with who you are and where you're from.
Well, I'm Helena Domenic, and I live in Exton, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 miles west of Philadelphia. And I don't know how much more detail from there you want me to go.
Yeah, so you do identify as an artist. Can you tell us, I believe you identify as an artist
Oh,
from
yes.
what you have described. What is your medium of choice? How do you express your
Ooh.
art?
So I like all the media. I use all kinds of things. For years, my primary medium was watercolors, but I do like to really mix it up. I've done work that was very sculptural, incorporating beads and found objects and using plaster to create kind of a sculptural thing. But over the years, I've been bringing the two sides, I guess you could say, of what I like to do together because I also like to do very detailed pencil drawings, either in graphite or in colored pencil. And I frequently combine that with watercolor as well. And lately, what I've been doing is mounting those on wooden board because with watercolor and colored pencil, you always have to put things under glass, and I got really sick of glass. So I've been mounting things on wooden board so that they could hang more like paintings would hang. And I embellish them with kind of giving them a frame around the piece with found objects, with crystals, with little sculptural objects, bits and bobs of things that I find. So, I like all the mediums, as I said. Also incorporate acrylics, and I've been working a little bit in oils too recently.
Very nice. Okay, and I wanted to get you to describe that to the audience because your art informs your spirituality heavily, and I think vice versa.
Correct.
Um, So, with that in mind, now, can you describe for the audience how do you identify spiritually? Let's say today, and then we'll get into your past a
Okay.
little bit after that.
Okay, today I'm definitely pagan. And I lean more towards Wiccan, although I'm kind of busting out of the margins of that, I think, a bit because there's a lot in Wicca that um and I think this is changing too in the Wiccan community, depending on who you talk to. But I'm trying to kind of break out of some of the very heteronormative and almost patriarchal, hierarchical elements that Wicca has.
Mm,
So, right now, I would say I'm an eclectic hedge witch, maybe.
okay. Very cool. Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people don't think about how heteronormative Wicca can be with the god and the goddess, the
Hmm.
Lord and Lady. There is
Hmm.
always that duality that seems to
Hmm.
be no longer as universal in today's world
Hmm.
as perhaps it used to be.
Right.
Very interesting. And so in our communications before today, you had mentioned being a or being involved early on with an organization that I have heard about for years. I've known
Hmm.
their reputation kind of precedes them, but the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel.
Correct.
Um, and I understand that you are no longer involved with them, but I think if you could describe your association with them and how that kind of may have influenced perhaps your art or perhaps your
Hmm.
spirituality today.
Oh,
What
yeah.
was your involvement with them?
Well, it has had a profound impact on my life. I was with them for at least 30 years. I had joined initially in my early 20s, and
And real quick, can you tell the audience exactly why they're well known or who they are or what they do?
oh boy. Why are they well known? Well, I think they're well known because they've done a lot of really cool things. They run the Between the Worlds Conference, which is a conference that happens every couple of years because it's determined by astrology and not by let's just do
Mm,
this on this date next year when space is available. It's always done around some kind of astrological event that's happening, and it's a very well, not academic, but it does have very academic elements in it. It's kind of a step up from all the 101s, shall we say. It's definitely a more ad for advanced practitioners, so they get into some more chewy topics. I
okay.
guess, and they're known for their ability to do that and for those rituals. And Ivo Dominguez Jr. is the head of the assembly, and of course, he's very well known as an author and a speaker and very well respected. So I would say that's probably why they're so well known.
They also, I believe, they founded and they operate the oh, what is it called? The New
Oh,
Alexandrian
the new
Library.
yes, I can't forget that. Yes, the New Alexandrian Library as well. Yes, which is a very large collection of, they really wanted to create um a multifaceted collection of esoteric knowledge to be preserved and things um, that were on paper, like a lot of the very early, in the 60s and 70s, pagan zines that started that, paper falls apart and gets lost, or it hangs out around in somebody's attic or garage, and they really wanted to really collect all of that so that it could be digitized and preserved and accessed by pagan scholars that want to do the research.
Right, yeah, they're working to preserve the history of
Mm.
paganism and Wicca.
Yes.
Um, so, and you had mentioned that you had initiated into their degree system,
Yes.
and you completed the full degree system.
I went up to they have 5 degrees. I went up to the fourth degree, which is elder. And it may seem strange that at that point I would leave, but I really felt a calling to be more focused in my art and to have more time for my art. I'm not getting any younger, and I was doing a lot of traveling between my home in Pennsylvania and the assembly in Delaware, and it was a lot, and then COVID hit, of course, which complicated everything. And after COVID, I started working at a university that was more than an hour from my house. So ultimately, I think I made the best decision for me. Um, to
Right.
leave when I did so that I could preserve my own energy and kind of get back to what I feel has always been my true calling, which is art and the spirit.
Yes. Perfect segue. Let's get into that. So you mentioned your artwork, you mentioned your um, kind of personal history in paganism and Wicca.
Mhm.
How do those two roads intersect in your life today?
Mm, very much so. So, as I told you in our emailing back and forth, I suffered a very severe spinal column injury last year. It's been since June 3rd, actually. It was the 1 year anniversary, and that has impacted my work significantly. That was a life-changing event that I did not see coming. And a lot of what I have been doing has been finding the symbols of my healing that really speak to me. And before that happened, I always now feel like my life is divided into before and after.
Right.
So before that, I had still been very interested in art and the spirit, and I was making devotional works that could be altarpieces for pagans, for various deities. I'm particularly interested in the Celtic and the Egyptian pantheons. So I did a number of works, say around the goddess Bridget and the goddess Isis. And I also love Hecate. I'm nothing if not eclectic. So
Mm,
a lot of those works were very focused on, like I said, being altarpieces. And I also feel that my art is a way for me to communicate with the other worlds, and since the terrible big bad terrible thing that happened, that's what my coven calls it, the big bad terrible thing that happened. Um, Between that, I feel like my work has gone in more towards in some ways it's more personal, but at the same time more universal, because I feel like I've gained a greater empathy for others who are going through things like this. And I also write, so I've been writing about everything that I've been going through and hopefully plan to publish that along with the art that I've been making so that, I think people who go through profound changes like this need to know that there is hope on the other side of it.
right. And how is your healing journey today? Are you
Oh, it's pretty good. I was told the night that I went in for surgery that I would never walk again.
mm,
And I think that I just something in the back of my head said, don't believe that. I don't. And so I said to myself, I don't believe you, to the
mm,
physician. And I spent 2 months in the hospital. I did physical therapy 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. And I got to the point when I left there that I could walk with a walker. And now I'm walking with a cane. So, it's in increments and it'll really be the doctors say about 2 full years before we really know what the end game is going to look like for me, of what I can do. Um and that there could even be surprises beyond that. So I feel very
okay.
positive about it, and I'm extremely grateful that I am walking again and I am able to get out on my own. I'm able to drive again, and be a little bit more independent and, do the things that are really important to me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Good to hear.
Thanks.
Um, and so you had mentioned how the artwork kind of helps you. I don't know if you said communicate with the other world or
Mm.
find expression there. Can you kind of
Hmm.
go a little deeper into that?
Yeah,
How does that manifest?
I'm going to try. It's really hard sometimes because
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
words, don't always adequately summarize what it's about, but I feel like sometimes my works, I look into the eyes of the creatures that I've made on paper or canvas, and I feel like they're kind of speaking to me and through me through the artwork, and that they want to be seen and maybe appreciated by others, or that they want to see through my eyes this world.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of intense. And like I said, it's very hard to put into words, but I feel like my art is a channel for that. My pictures I feel are like portals.
Right. And so practically speaking, what does that look like? Is there some kind of ritual you do before performing or before
Mm.
creating the art? Or do you just kind of it just takes over? What's your creative process like, I suppose?
It depends, is
Mm,
always the answer. Sometimes I start out with a very specific idea in mind, and I do a lot of collage work to put together ideas and see what's going on, and then I make an image based on the components of the collage. So that's one way in which I do it. There's also some days I will get myself into a meditative state,
mm,
and then I'll just start to draw and see what comes through. And so those drawings um, are a little bit more personal, and I don't always show those to people, but they might show up in later works. Um,
right.
yeah.
Okay. And so in your experience, if people are or don't consider themselves artistic, or they think they don't have, enough creativity, maybe they get down on themselves.
Mm,
Um, do you think there is a way for people to express their spirituality through artwork, even if they
mm.
think their artwork isn't that great?
Oh, absolutely. In in doing healing artwork, it's not about a finished product necessarily, for one thing.
Oh,
And I teach I'm just recently retired from university teaching, but I would teach my students meditative techniques to kind of loosen them up before beginning drawing. And that's also part of my process too, where start with a blank piece of paper and set a timer, say for 10 or 15 minutes, and just allow your mind to drag your pen or pencil across the paper and to just see what comes through intuitively. And usually it's very abstract. It's not meant to be about a finished product because a lot of people, when they're starting out in art, they become so focused on creating a finished product. They want
right.
to um, have something that, I can hang up somewhere, but it's not necessarily about that with this process. It's just about letting your mind take over and go wherever. And then you stop after those 15 minutes. And hopefully, if you've done it right, you've got something that looks like a lot of swirls and twirls and, maybe even scribbles on your paper. And then at that point, I feel like your mind is opened up enough to go and work on something else. So that's one technique that I use. And then there's another one that I use, which is neurographic drawing, which was invented by a Russian guy whose last name is Piskarev. I can't think of his first name. But in that technique, it's very similar. But what you're doing as you're making lots of, I'm tracing it on the screen and nobody's going to see it. So you're doing kind of a lot of scribbles and letting the lines cross over each other. And then after you've done that for a bit, everywhere that the lines join up with each other, you kind of create a little wedge. And there's something that your brain really likes. Nobody really knows why it works, but there's something that your brain really likes in going back in and joining up all of those little lines with each other and creating little wedges where they intersect. That they've shown that it cures depression, that it can help you get yourself together, in a more organized way. Um, and so that's another technique that I've taught. And again, that's something that does not require you to be an artist. And you can always go back into that drawing and, fill it with colors or more marks or that sort of thing. And then yet another technique is to start by creating mandalas, which start with circles, and then you build with on the circles with little shapes and little designs and things until you've got something that looks like a finished mandala. And in that case, for people that are really stumped, I even have stencils for people to start with if they feel like, wow, I can't do this. The stencil at least kind of gives them a framework to begin with. So there's a variety of techniques that I use.
That's great. And if anybody wants to Google the second one, you said was it neurogenerative?
Neurographic.
No,
It's
neurographic.
neurographic, Neurographic. So that's how it's spelled. And there's tons of examples of it on YouTube. And I think Piskarev has his own channel on YouTube as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
he gets into how to do it.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense because as you were describing that process, I've never heard of it, but it almost sounds like it prepares your brain to create order out of the chaos of the scribbles. Um,
Exactly. And it actually, a lot of the finished drawings, if you've seen photographs of neurons in the brain and how they're, connecting up with each other and stuff, the
mm.
drawing winds up looking a lot like that, which I think is really cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is very interesting. Um, okay. And also to stress too, yeah, I like what you mentioned about allowing yourself to not feel pressured to finish the project or final product. Do you recommend something like a sketch journal or maybe a daily,
Oh,
like people
sure.
have a daily dream journal, something like that?
Yeah, definitely. And you want to find something when you're looking for a sketchbook, you want to look at they're going to tell you the size, and it's up to you what the size is. I recommend at least 9 by 12 because that gives you enough room to kind of be expansive. But you can go, if you feel brave, you can go even bigger, although start small. And if you want to be able to carry it around with you, and
Right.
you want to look at the cover, and there's going to be little bits of information like the size of the sketch pad and the texture of the paper. So open it up, look at the texture of the paper. Do you like it smooth? Do you like it a little bit rough? And there's also going to be a little thing where it tells you what the pounds of the paper are. And what that refers to is if you have a gross of 500 sheets of this paper, it's how much it's going to weigh.
Mm.
So the higher the pound number, the more abuse the paper can take. So if you're, say, working with ink a lot or wet media, you want to have at least a 90-pound sheet of paper to be working with or higher. If you're only working in pencil, you can get away with something lower, like say a 60 or a 70. But you probably, again, you want to make sure that it's something that is not going to bleed if you're using markers.
Right. Right. Very interesting. I've always heard that poundage. I never knew what it referred to.
Yeah,
Um,
oh, and the
Makes
other
sense.
thing also, I keep thinking of little tips. If you're going to be using a sketchbook, don't draw on both sides of the page because if you're
Uh,
using pencil, one page is going to smear into the other. It's very, very smeary. So leave the back of your page pristine. And if you're not able to do that, then get tissue paper or something to put in between the pages so that you can keep them from smudging up on each other.
Very good advice. Um, and so this kind of practical advice that you are sharing now, I think that it perhaps relates a little bit to you had told me about a new organization that you're involved with
Hmm.
um, that hosts workshops and classes and things like that. Is this
Mhm.
kind of, can you tell us about that organization?
Yeah, it's funny to hear you say organization because there's just a core of 5 of us. So it's if
Okay,
it's more of a small coven, if you will, than a
okay,
huge organization. And we like it that way with our core group, but it's called Solace of the Kindred Spirits. And we call it Solace because I was teaching a class on tarot and then later on Wicca at Solace Farms. So we want to honor where we got our start from. So Solace of the Kindred Spirits, because we are kindred to one another. And it's basically we're an eclectic bunch of people who are all on different paths. Some of us are more Wiccan, some of us are just more eclectically pagan. Um, and some of us have more ceremonial interests. Um, so we just come together to combine things and we take turns offering rituals and workshops out of my studio in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I have an art studio and with a lot of space in it. So thankfully, we're able to have a lot of people in and do a lot of really fun stuff.
very nice. And so just as an example, what are some of the workshops y'all have hosted in the past, you or some of the other members?
Our most recent one, we did a spell jar workshop, which I didn't lead that one, but it
Okay.
was really well received and went really well, where we had stations set up with the various components people might want to use in a spell jar. So things like we had lots of little crystal shards, and we had lots of different kinds of herbs, and we also had paper for writing intentions, and we had sealing wax for sealing the spell jar. We also had little recipe cards for spells. So That was really fun and went really well. And we actually had a little ritual at the end to empower the spell jar because you want to tell it what you want it to do and then what to do afterwards. So that was very well received. And then we've also done um, very crafty, hands-on type of things, but it seems to be something that people like, and it's also bringing people into my studio, which is something I really wanted to be able to offer, like community things for people to do and hands-on things. So we also have done
Right.
creating your own book of shadows and we also talked with that one, we talked about how to actually make a book, or how to use a book that, a blank book that somebody else has created that you add to and make it your own. So looking at it from two different perspectives. And we also did a broom making workshop. So that sort of thing. I'm about to offer a Craft of the Wise 101 starting in July. So I think that'll be fun. And what else? Planning to offer some tarot soon as well. That is always really well received. That's also kind of my wheelhouse, art and tarot. They go together for
Right.
me very well.
That's great. Real quick, the name of the group again, if anybody wants to find it, is there a website or a Facebook group or
Well, we're
something?
on Facebook, we're on social media, we're on Facebook and Instagram as Solace of the Kindred Spirits. So you can just look that up and you'll find us.
Great.
And as I said, we meet out of my studio in Phoenixville.
Great. Okay. And I had seen on some of the links you had sent me when we were chatting that yeah, you do a lot with the tarot. Are you an intuitive reader? Is that how you read intuitively?
I read intuitively, but I also, because I'm an artist and I love symbols and I love all of that, I look at the symbols on the cards too, and let
Right.
the images speak to me and see if, it's intuitive in that I look at the images and take into account the situation and the question, of the person who I'm giving the reading to. I also have two decks of my own that I've created,
Oh,
and I
please tell
wrote,
us.
yeah, the Fellowship of the Fool was the first deck that I created, and that was back in 2007. And there's a book that goes with it, and people can find that on my website. And I have
What
another
is it?
deck.
What's the website?
Oh, it's artofhelenadominic.com.
Okay.
And um, yes. So there's that one. And I have another one that I'm working on that I am recreating. I actually released about 20 of them out into the world and then decided I wanted to completely switch up the cards. So I'm going back in and working on those, and hopefully I'll release those into the wild um, sometime in the next year or so, I hope.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Speaking of your creations, you had mentioned, or I had seen a book
Hmm.
that you had published. Can you tell us about that? It was beautiful, by the way, the artwork I
Oh,
saw.
oh, thank you. Yes, that's an illuminated guide to Wicca, and that was published by Schiffer Publications. And I'd always wanted to create my own. I think I talked about creating altarpieces. So I'm very influenced by things that are medieval or from the Renaissance. So I love illuminated manuscripts. And I'd always
Mm.
wanted to create my own. So an illuminated guide to Wicca is kind of my contribution to that. And it's as the each chapter builds on the last of, talking about the basics of the history of Wicca and paganism, and then going into what are some of the, even though we are also very different, what are some of the common core beliefs? Knowing, of course, that other people are going to disagree and say other things. And then getting into things like, what are the four elements? How do you create sacred space? What is the wheel of the year? How do you do a spell? Things like that.
Right. It is a very instructional guide, and you'd mentioned earlier how words sometimes can't convey. So I encourage everybody to go look up the book, An Illuminated Guide to Wicca. It is as if it is as if an artist was teaching you about Wicca, basically.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said, beautiful artwork.
Oh, thank you so
Um,
much.
and oh, this is what I wanted to ask you about next. Being
Hmm.
that this is a podcast for Cherry Hill Seminary,
Hmm.
um, you are, I understand you had to take a break because of the injury, but
Yes.
are you back in school now?
I am. I'm in cohort 4 of the spiritual direction certificate. And I'm now
Can you
finally, I got through the first 3 months before the big bad terrible thing happened. And so now like, I feel like I'm really in because I've gone into the fourth month of the cohort and I feel like, yay, good, I'm here. It's real. It's happening. I'm doing it.
and can you tell us what that what are you learning in the certificate of or the spiritual direction certificate program?
Yeah, I really love it. It's about um so what a spiritual director does is, and I think it's a misnomer to call it direction. You're helping people to find their direction. You're not telling them what direction
Mm,
to go in. So
right.
it's very much, it's about being a spiritual mentor and holding space for people while they try to figure out what it is they believe in and what they want to do, holding space, active listening, being a resource, being able to offer other resources while somebody is going on their journey.
And how long is that program? What's the commitment for that program?
It's 2 years.
2 years, right. So I think that's important for the audience to understand that when you learn with Cherry Hill, you're gonna walk away with
Mhm.
knowledge you did not have before, especially after that long a time studying one topic. Um,
It's been very good for me because I really wanted to get um, that element of kind of pastoral counseling, although direction is not counseling per se. But
right.
I really wanted to increase my knowledge to better serve my community, essentially, where I'm at, and to be better able to be better trained, to be there for people when they're going through, um, whether it's a dark night of the soul or I'm just not sure what my place in the community is or what it is I'm doing here. I just want to be able to help people on their way because it's been a long journey for me, and it's been very interesting learning about spiritual direction through the years and also being able to take insight courses as well. I'm taking one right now on decolonizing paganism, which has been really interesting and I really like it.
Oh, great. Yes, that's right. That is going on now. I have
Mhm.
seen some of the lectures for that class. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and well, Helena, that's wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like the audience to know? Any other projects you might be working on? Any links you might like to share?
Okay, so yes, besides the finding the solace of the kindred spirits on Facebook and Instagram, please check out my website, artofhelenadominic.com. I also need to get that updated, but
Mhm.
I'm doing
Okay.
it. And I also have a Substack under my name, Helena Dominic, where I'm publishing about my healing journey and what that's been like, and um, a little bit of my art on there too. So, um, you can look for me there as well. And my other book, The Illuminated Guide to Wicca, is also available on Amazon as well as Schiffer. So there it
Right.
is.
Okay. And just because of the the physical trauma that you had experienced, I think that would be important also for coming from someone who has lived it. Is there anything perhaps that you might recommend, spiritually speaking?
Mm.
Um,
One thing that I found really comforting while I was in my hospital room was I took time out. There, I didn't have a lot I didn't have tools with me. I didn't have candles. I didn't have, an FMA. I didn't have a wand, but I did take time to make sure that I created sacred space for myself every day, which is something you can do mentally. The nurses don't need to see you doing it. I couldn't stand, at that point. I was partially paralyzed initially. So, I would just reach out to the four sacred directions and invite them to come in, and I would, make my prayers to my gods, all from my hospital bed. And that, I think, really sustained me through those 2 months. And what was also really great is that the hospital itself, I was in Bryn Mawr Rehabilitation Hospital, which is in Malvern, Pennsylvania, and they actually have Reiki practitioners who come
Mm,
into your room. So I had a number of Reiki treatments while I was in the hospital, which was amazing. This was an amazing facility. If you're going to be laid up for 2 months, this is the place to go. Um,
mm,
and that was really, really helpful. And then, of course, it was in the height of summer, in the height of the heat when I was there. But when the heat would break, my physical therapists would take me outside sometimes. And just being in nature was really wonderful. They have a wonderful garden there. So, I think that was important for my recovery too.
yeah, in my experience, nature does not have to be the deep nature. Just getting outside onto your front porch, if that's all you can manage, even
Yes,
opening a window and letting the air in, I have found
yes.
can get you close enough for some mental benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the place was full of windows, which was wonderful. So,
Right.
I wasn't looking out at, you know, gray walls. I was looking out at a wooded area from where my hospital bed was.
Right.
Um, uh,
Okay. Well, Helena, thank you so much.
Thank
Um,
you.
I will, I guess we can start wrapping it up. For the audience, um, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Cherry Hill Seminary podcast. If you found this conversation to be of value, please consider making a donation to Cherry Hill Seminary at cherryhillseminary.org. And if you are interested in learning more about any of the degrees, certificates, or courses that Cherry Hill Seminary offers, you can learn more about those at cherryhillseminary.org/academics. Um, Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Helena, thank you for being here, and I will see everybody next time. Bye.
Thank you so much.